Hello, viewers. My name is Abdullah Suleimana, and I welcome you to Beginners Leader Abdullah Suleimana YouTube channel. On this channel, what we upload is ICT tutorials. Today, our discussion is going to be on parts of personal computer. And before we dive into today's topic, I would like to use this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for being part of my family. I'm much grateful and I must say thank you. Your commitment entices me a lot, and I feel like dropping tutorials every day. Just that time wouldn't allow me to do so. But as time goes on, we look forward to meeting all your demands. Thank you for your time with me. If you haven't subscribed to Beginners Leader Abdullah Suleimana, I urge that you do so. Please check below this video. There is a title, Beginners Leader Abdullah Suleimana. Along that title, there is a subscription button. Click on that and you'll be a subscribed member. Thank you very much for your time with me. And let's walk into our topic for today. Parts of personal computer. Before that, I think it will be beneficial if I talk on classification of computers. History has made it known to us that the first or the earlier generation of computers were very big in size, in that one could not carry them from one place to another. The name given to those computers were mainframe computers. Their services were much centralized. For the fact was, they were very big in size and one could not carry them from one place to another. So because of its portability problem, they thought that it would be much beneficial if they come out with a lesser one, those that can be carried from one place to another. So that brought the idea of manufacturing mini computers. Mini computers were manufactured to solve the problem of portability faced by mainframe computers. But unfortunately, it wasn't able to address that problem. The mini computers, though, were not big as the mainframe computers, but they were also very big in a way that one could not carry them from one place to another. So their services were also much centralized. So because of that, there was still the need to come out with another set of computers. And that masterminded the manufacturing of microcomputers. Microcomputers are the later computers we are using currently. They are very small in size compared to the early two generation of computers. The microcomputers were small in size and one could carry them from one place to another. So the problem of centralization of service were addressed by then. And as at now, I think anywhere you are, you have at least a computer with you, which is our smartphones. So a microcomputer comprises laptops, desktop, smartphones, iPad, palm tops, and others. So let's tackle the parts of personal computer. We have what we call motherboard, monitor, mouse, keyboard, speaker, processor, printer, RAM, etc. Motherboard. The motherboard is the heart of the computer. It is the largest and most fundamental component of a computer, and every other component is attached to it in some way. This is because all the different components use the motherboard to communicate and work with each other. Slice is telling us that the motherboard is the heart of the computer. And I'm very sure we all know what the heart does. The heart is responsible for pumping blood to all the other parts of our body. And we are much aware that our system needs blood to be able to function. So this is telling us that whatever will ensure that there is blood in the system is a very key item to the life of the system. And they are telling us that the motherboard is just like the heart of living things. So the motherboard is also the main item that gives life or that gives hope to the system. Without the motherboard, the system will not get the resources it needs to function, and for that matter, it cannot function. All the components of the computer are connected to the motherboard. So without the motherboard, it means that they will not get their connectivity. And if they are not connected, they can't work individually. Are we together? So let's continue. The motherboard has a series of slots, sockets, and connectors for attaching the components of a computer. In most cases, the memory, accessory cards, and CPU are installed directly onto the motherboard. I said the motherboard is a place where all the components are attached to. And before a component can be attached to another component, it means that there should be something that is connecting them. So the motherboard is having slots, sockets, and connectors where you can connect other components before interactions will begin. So every computer has slots, sockets, and connectors, and through those things you can connect other components. And those sockets, slots, and connectors are directly mounted on the motherboard. Are we together? It means they are tapping their energy from the motherboard, and through them that you can also get power to function. So the motherboard is just the, let me see, the generator. It is responsible for supplying power to all other parts. Like, for instance, let's use VRA transformer as an example. The motherboard is a transformer. And from the transformer, you can tap the energy, the light, to different areas. So let's continue. On the motherboard are some special ROM chip that contain the BIOS. The BIOS is the component that checks your computer's components and causes the operating system to start. On the motherboard, there is what we call ROM, read-only memory. The ROM is a permanent storage unit It stores information permanently on the computer, and its information can only be read. You can't modify them. And within that ROM, there is another component we call BIOS. And the BIOS is responsible for permitting the system to run. And what it does, it checks all the components of the computer to ensure that they are all working up to expectation before it will permit the operating system to start. For instance, when you click on the power button of your laptop or your computer, it is the responsibility of the BIOS to check all the components, like to check the keyboard to ensure that it's working, to check the monitor to ensure that it's working, to check the microphone to ensure that it's working, to check the speaker to ensure that it's working, to check the RAM to ensure that it's well fixed and it's working, to check the hard disk to ensure that it's well fixed and it's working. It will do background checks on all those things before it will allow the operating system to start. It will check through the files, the operating system files, to ensure that they are not corrupted. So once it's able to detect a faulty component, it will go to the ROM and pick the message that best describes the problem facing that component and display it for you. And there, you can only read and know the problem answers then, but you can't alter the text on your display. That is why they said the ROM stores data permanently, and you can only read those data. You can't modify them. Are we together? So the BIOS is basic input-output system. So it is responsible for the basic input and output resources of the computer. And those things are found on the RAM. They are permanently stored on the RAM. They usually come with the manufacturer's specification. Are we together? Okay. Talk on the monitor. The monitor is a device similar to a television. It is used to display information such as text and graphics to the user. Many are those who think monitor is what we call computer. However, computer involves more than just a monitor. So the monitor is something like in the form of television. On your display here is what we call monitor. Through the monitor, you can see whatever is in the computer. I hope I'm clear. And the misconception there is many people think the monitor is what we call computer. Though it's an important part of the computer, but it is just a component of the computer, and that is not the only thing we call computer. The only thing that forms what we call computer. I hope I'm clear. For instance, without the monitor, if you have projector, you can be able to project whatever is on the computer for people to see. Are we together? Let's go. Printer. The printer is a device used to transfer text and images from a computer to a paper. You can use a printer to create a paper copy of whatever you see on your monitor. So on your display here is what we call printer. And any information you are seeing on your monitor, you can have the same copy on a paper through what we call a printer. So the printer is an output device which can help you to print whatever you have on your screen onto a paper. And you have a paper copy of whatever you see on your screen. The keyboard is a device used to type text such as letters or numbers onto the computer. On your display here is what we call keyboard. On the keyboard, there are characters and numbers. You can see 1, 2, 3. You can see A, B, C, D. And there are some special characters like at, hash, dollar sign, percentage, and other stuffs are we together. And through this keyboard, you can be able to input any data onto the computer. That is what we use to do our typing. The central processing unit is a chip located on the motherboard which performs mathematical calculations and logic functions. The CPU is often referred to as the brain of the computer because it administers functions of the other components. So the CPU is a chip and it's inside the motherboard and is responsible for doing calculations on the computer. They are telling you that the CPU is the brain of the computer. And we all know what the brain does. The brain is responsible for doing thinking. So it's telling us that the CPU is responsible for thinking in the computer. So whatever thing you are working on, the CPU is what is responsible for the logic behind that thing. So if you add 2 plus 3, it's the responsibility of the CPU to calculate 2 plus 3 and give you the answer 5. And I said the CPU is often referred to as the brain of the computer because it administers the functions of the other computers, other components. For instance, if you have Word document you are working on, sometimes you'll be typing and you'll be fast, it will be responding. Sometimes you want to type and the document itself is not responding, you can't type. So they are telling you that the CPU is responsible for determining the power of or the speed of whatever you are working on. So the size of the CPU will determine the fastness of your work on that document. If your CPU is big, your Word document will respond quickly. If your CPU is very small, your work on the work document will be very slow and it may not be responding at some instances. Are we together? So it's telling us that the functions of all the programs are directly dependent on the size of the CPU. If you have low CPU, you will have low processing. If you have big CPU, the faster the processing will be. So let's continue. The RAM stands for Random Access Memory. It is found directly on the motherboard and usually in 1, 2, or 4 slots. The memory chip stores information temporarily for short-term use by the CPU. RAM is used to store information for files that are actually being used by the CPU at any given time. The RAM is random access memory. So we have ROM and we have RAM. The ROM is read-only memory. Read-only memory. And it stores data permanently. And you can only read the data it stores. You can't alter them. Whereas the RAM is random access memory. It stores data temporarily and is responsible for storing whatever file under run. So any file that is currently running is being stored by the RAM. Are we together? So they are telling us that the RAM is also located in the motherboard. And it does what we call temporal storage. Temporal simply means that it's not forever, it's not infinite, it's not definite, it's very short. within a shorter period it will release it. So it only holds it once it is still on process. Once it's done and maybe you close it, it will release it as soon as possible. Are we together? So the RAM is responsible for keeping whatever program is currently running on the computer. So this is telling us that the larger your RAM, the more programs you can run on your computer. And the smaller your RAM, the smaller programs you can run on your computer. For instance, they said the RAM is responsible for holding all the programs and the RAM. So supposing I'm a very small boy and you decide to overload me, you put a sack of cassava on me, you put 2 bags of maize on me, you put 1 gallon of kerosene on me, you see that you just collapse me. But if I'm strong enough and you put those things, you see that I can resist them. Are we together? So if your RAM is small, it is telling you that the programs you are running, you should be able to control them. You shouldn't open too many programs on your system. Are we together? If your RAM is big, though that doesn't also guarantee that you should open too many programs. I think we will all appreciate it if you get time to rest. So it's always advisable that the programs that are not currently in use, you should always close them so that you will release the tension on the RAM and it will help you to manage your computer very well. The mouse. The mouse is an input device that you can use to control a pointer that displays on the screen of the computer. Mouse on laptop computers work when you drag your finger across the touchpad. On your display here is what we call RAM and mouse. It helps you to control the white thing that is displayed on the screen, the white small arrow. You use the mouse to control that thing. It is called cursor. The mouse on your laptop is the rectangular touchpad. The mouse is located there. So once you put your finger, you drag, you'll be able to control the cursor on the screen. General parts of desktop computer. We have what we call system unit. And inside the system unit, we have motherboard, we have processor, we have the RAM, ROM, and so many things. We have a screen, we have monitor. The screen is found in the monitor. We have speaker, we have microphone, we have mouse, we have keyboard. Are we together? So all these components must be connected to the system unit before you can have your computer running. So you can think of the speaker, it should be connected to the system unit. Think of the keyboard, it should be connected to the system unit. The monitor itself should be connected to the system unit. The mouse must be connected to the system unit. So all those components, including the monitor itself, must be connected to the system unit. And their connectivity is being permitted by the slots, sockets, and the connectors that are in the system unit. And those slots connected and sockets are directly mounted on what we call the motherboard. That is why the motherboard is the heart of the computer. There's no single component here that you can use without connecting it to the system unit. And the motherboard is found inside the system unit. And inside the motherboard too, it houses what we call the RAM, the ROM, the hard disks, and all other things are way together. So all the important components are in the system unit. One may see that you have something like wireless speakers. where you can connect without the need to connect cable to the system unit. And before your wireless speakers can work, it means that a Bluetooth feature must be installed on the motherboard. Are we together? So before your wireless device can work, it means that it's connecting with the Bluetooth device that is installed on the motherboard. So it is still the same thing. It still has a connection to the motherboard. So display here is what we call laptop computer. It's a personal computer. It's also a personal computer. Computers or tablet computer. Computer work for you. I like it. Take a coffee break and let's do the work. This is a dismantled laptop. I am asking you to identify at least 5 parts of that particular dismantled laptop. I can see keyboard, I can see screen, I can see hard disk, I can see RAM. So all as I can see motherboard, you can try and identify some and add to what I've saw. I mention 5 parts of a computer. I state the function or functions of each of the parts mentioned in I. Mention 3 types of personal computers you know. IV. What is the misconception about monitor? I've talked on that. So try your hands on them and send your results or your solution to me via an email quickdoctor8@gmail.com and it will get to me. Thank you very much for being part of this tutorial. I really appreciate your time with me. Thank you and may God bless us all. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel by checking below this video. You see a title, Beginners Leader Abdullah Suleimana. Along that title, there is a subscription button. Click on it and you'll be part of the family. Thank you for your time with me, and I encourage you that you should always stay tuned. I will do my best to always give you the best tutorials. Stay tuned and visit Beginners Leader Abdullah Suleimana and watch other videos by me. Thank you for your time with me.